The bright moon no longer shines upon the Vance River. I was the white moonlight Julian had abandoned his family to marry. Yet when I was 6 months pregnant, he strayed. Inside a private booth he kissed a young, pretty girl while the crowd cheered. Someone sighed that he had married the campus goddess and was about to enjoy the full package: wife, kids, and a cozy hearth. Julian's lips twisted as he lit a cigarette, exhaling smoke along with a sneer. Serena's great, gentle, gorgeous, but when I think how I broke from the Vance dynasty and clawed my way up from nothing just to marry her, I feel like a damned idiot. Looking at her now, she's nothing special. Timid, dull, boring as hell. He kissed the girl beside him again, stroking her cheek in teasing fondness. Still, you're better, no demand for a title, just play whenever and however I want. He forgot, Serena may be timid and dull, but she holds grudges, venomous, relentless ones. In one hand I carried the hangover pills I'd picked up at the pharmacy, in the other a dripping umbrella. My phone still showed the message he'd sent an hour ago. Baby, I'm wasted. Come fetch me home, please? The same coquettish, aggrieved tone as always. Dim amber lighting smeared the corridor with a suggestive haze. This was Avalon, the ultra-exclusive club Julian could re-enter only after hacking out his own empire and thumbing his nose at the Vance family. Privacy, of course, was absolute. Maybe the light was poor. I tripped where carpet met marble and lurched forward several steps before catching myself. I clutched my swollen belly, heart hammering. Then the ring finger of my left hand felt cold and strangely light, like a needle had stabbed my heart. My wedding band had slipped off in the stagger. For 3 years of marriage I had never once removed the ring Julian had designed and polished with his own hands. Countless times in bed he had nuzzled my limp fingers, kissing between breathless praises. Exquisite, Serena is exquisite everywhere, and only Serena deserves a ring I made. Now it had fallen away with ridiculous ease. No omen, no drama, like one last withered leaf that simply drops when its season ends. I crouched, frantic, sweeping the carpet. In the murk every tuft of plush looked identical, nothing glinted. The booth door stood ajar, spilling the voices of young men and women. They were playing truth or dare. Apparently someone lost and had to drink. Julian, I really can't, help me, huh? Do this for me and tonight I'll give you everything you want. The girl's voice was liquid honey, sticky sweet, the final note a kitten's mule. Little liar, last night you promised the same, then halfway through you started crying, remember? The lazy male lilt was bright with amusement, steeped in the same tenderness he once lavished on me. I've always lacked security. A sudden rustle in a silent room can send my heart into palpitations. Serena, such a scaredy cat, loud door slam and you flinch like a rabbit. Easy, baby, it's just me setting a glass down too hard. Come here. He cocooned me in the duvet and folded me against his chest, smoothing my rigid spine, chuckling, my Serena's a bunny. From now on I'll move like mist, promise nothing will ever startle you. Oddly, that lullaby worked. Inch by inch I loosened, handing over my trust, letting him occupy the safest corner of my heart. In the years that followed, the smallest flicker of fear on my face would make him bundle me, duvet and all, into his arms until the terror ebbed. Right now that safe zone collapsed, leaving behind a hollow that echoed. Tears fell without warning. The pain stormed back after a month's cruel truce and drowned me. Yes, a month. I'd known for 4 full weeks that Julian had strayed. 2. That day it rained too. Autumn in Kingstown turns on a dime. I'd booked a prenatal checkup and waited in a thick trench coat for Julian to pick me up. The man who should have been back by 2 didn't show at 3. With the appointment looming I rang him. He answered hoarse-voiced yet still gentle, patient. Sorry, love, last-minute call with the overseas partner. Take my assistant today, all right? I dislike strangers near me, even aides I've met a dozen times. But lately he'd been burning both ends, slipping in after I fell asleep, gone before I woke, the residual warmth on his pillow the only proof he'd returned. Last time I actually saw him was 2 nights earlier. Exhaustion clung to him like fog. He nuzzled my neck, whining that the upcoming IPO launch devoured every spare minute and begging a kiss as compensation. Thinking of that, I softened. All right, but promise me you'll rest. He laughed, sent a loud smack through the phone, and promised. He added he'd snagged Wings of an Angel at last night's charity auction for me. Heat rushed to my cheeks, delight, not nerves. Wings of an Angel was the single piece my favorite sculptor had ever released for sale. I'd mooned over magazine spreads until Julian noticed, hauled me onto his lap, and teased that proper persuasion would make it mine. I'd pleaded until my tongue numbed, lips bruised, legs jelly. Only then did he carry me to bed, rasping that no one but I could wear those wings. Yet the necklace never circled my throat. While I beamed at the sonogram image of our bean-sized baby waving its tiny fists, the husband who'd claimed he was stuck in meetings sat in the next gynecology bay cradling a sobbing girl. Ruptured ovarian cyst from overly frequent intercourse. Limit activity, keep clean, no sex for 2 weeks. The girl whimpered, burrowing into Julian's chest. He clasped her hand and pressed kisses to her brow. His temper is brittle, old money prince, accustomed to worship. Offend him and retaliation is swift, cruel. In his rare smiles you read arrogance. Gentleness was once my exclusive privilege. Now he'd mastered coaxing another woman. I stood rooted, the printout crumpling in my fist. Julian's words rang true. I'm timid, tongue-tied. Even catching my husband red-handed, my first instinct was to bolt rather than confront. What spiraled through my skull? Oh, Julian knew my appointment, didn't he? Knew I always used this private wing, right? So why parade his mistress here, unless he wanted me to see, to spare him explanations, to step aside without fuss? My gaze ping-ponged between their entwined bodies and landed on her neck. There glittered the necklace I drooled over in glossy pages. 3. I don't remember the trek home. Only that the rain soaked me and my phone buzzed unanswered. Once inside I finally picked up. Julian sounded panicked. Sweetheart, where were you? My driver lost you, send me a pin, I'll come get you. Numb, I replied, I'm already home. He rambled on, static roared in my ears. After he hung up I peeled off wet clothes. Shivers racked me even after I cranked the thermostat to 86 and burrowed under every blanket. I could still hear my teeth chatter. Night fell, the door never opened. Suddenly I snapped, flipped the coffee table, glass vase, and dew-damp roses exploding across the rug. Even in fury the coward in me waited until the guilty party was safely absent. I smashed whatever my arms could reach until exhaustion dropped me amid the shards. Only then did I realize the cold wasn't skin deep, it was my heart hemorrhaging, howling. My spinning mind hunted for a sin to pin on itself. What had I done to make the man who once adored me plunge a dagger in my back while I carried his child? For the next month I haunted myself. I obsessed over my slack belly, my sallow cheeks, tallying every flaw until I loathed the woman in the mirror. Still I clung to silence, desperate to pretend none of it had happened. Orphaned at 17, I'd spent 8 years stapling my universe together with Julian as both family and future. I feared that ripping him loose would unmake me, but evasion proved futile. I became a forensic analyst of betrayal, cloying perfume clinging after dawn, lipstick ghosting shirt collars, chestnut curls tangled on the passenger seat, each clue a landslide grinding my sanity to dust. Calm on the surface, inside I was a tsunami battering seawalls until they crumbled in chunks, revealing rotting, stinking ruin. 4. Outside the booth my month-long fever finally broke. The laughter behind the door droned on. I no longer wished to enter. Bro, living the dream, hot wife, air on the way, gorgeous side dish. They say your lady was campus queen, same school as little sis here. A petulant female chirped, really, Julian? Your wife's my senior? Didn't you say she was tragic, orphaned young, stepdad beat her? I pictured some hag, a pout veiled in coquetry. If you'd told me she's gorgeous I wouldn't have asked last night who's prettier. How embarrassing. Sis, you don't keep a mistress for looks, what would she want from you? True, being poor doesn't equal ugly. With Julian's mug you'd know his wife's a knockout, common sense. The teasing pushed the girl to tears. Julian chuckled and intervened. Leave her alone, guys. She's young, sweet, don't spook her. As for Serena, the smile in his voice cooled, turned opaque. She's fine, gentle, beautiful, but when I remember abandoning the Vance dynasty and grinding through hell just to marry her, idiot is the only word. Now she bores me. Ice Queen act? Nah, just timid, antisocial, dull as toast. Why the hell did I ever think she was the one? His final syllable rose in genuine puzzlement. A chill needled my bones. The nightmare past I guarded like raw glass had become Julian's pillow talk. Dissected for his lover and their audience, my angst served as after-dinner entertainment. For a whole month I couldn't figure out why Julian would cheat, and now the answer had fallen straight from Julian's own lips. All the torment I'd put myself through this past month suddenly seemed laughable. Julian's father had also cheated while his mother was pregnant. By the time she found out, the illegitimate child was almost 10, practically Julian's age. From that moment on, Julian's mother's mind began to fray. After years of pain and struggle, she finally leapt from the roof. Not long after her death, his father moved the mistress and the bastard son straight into the house. Julian packed up that same day and never went back. He was 17 then, living next door to me. The change turned him savage, fights and trouble became routine. I only knew the boy next door was about my age and, like me, pitifully unwatched. So I'd sneak bruise bomb outside his door. Only after we got together did I learn about his family and the gulf between our worlds. His father never gave up on him, maybe out of some microscopic guilt over Julian's mother, and every resource of the Vance dynasty kept flowing his way. I once stepped back because of that, but Julian found me, shaking as he held me and choked out, "Serena, I can lose everything, except you. Don't leave me, I'll die. You're the only person in this world I care about." Pity won in the end. I went home with him and met the man who'd cheated his wife to death. He looked down on us from his height. "Julian, if you insist on marrying this woman, I'll strip you of every privilege the Vance name ever gave you." I still remember the pity in his eyes when he looked at me, the mockery when he looked at Julian. He said, "Are you sure that once you lose the Vance heir's halo, once you're pinching pennies over groceries, once you can't even afford the buttons on the shirt you're wearing now while your brother inherits the empire and basks in glory, are you sure you won't hate her, won't blame her?" 17-year-old Julian tugged me out of the mansion without a second look and threw back, "Then take it all back." Truth be told, every omen was already there. I'd seen Julian stare at tabloid photos of his half-brother in a tailored suit. I'd once pushed away his hand while he was drunk and broken during the hardest stretch of his startup, heard him mutter with hatred, "Why does he get everything? He's a bastard. His mother broke up my family. They've all forgotten how they used to suck up to me." Those fragments string into a single bright line telling me the truth. Julian hates me. How absurd. What right does Julian have to hate me? He made his own choices. Why pin his dissatisfaction on me? Coward. Ellis, your wife's 6 months pregnant. Aren't you afraid she'll find out? After that sentence, the room inside fell quiet for a second. Then came the crash of glass and Julian's icy warning, "So every one of you shut your damn mouths. She's almost due, nothing can go wrong at this stage." But, peeking through the crack, I saw Julian toss the shattered cup into a corner, Sam, his perfect profile unreadable, as if the warning had never happened. I only saw his Adam's apple slide as he said, "She's 6 months along, belly this big, and she has no one but me. Even if she finds out, what can she do?" Watching the man I once loved, my body began to tremble until my legs were so weak I had to lean against the wall. Fragmented images flashed through my mind. They froze on a rain-soaked night reeking of blood, a violent, drunken man, a little girl crying non-stop, and a pregnant woman shielding the girl, her belly huge. "Serena! Serena, run!" The woman's eyes were black-purple, so bloodshot they looked ready to drip. Her hair was wild, voice raspy, and behind her the man punched and kicked. His voice sliced through time straight into my ears. "You're knocked up, belly swollen by me. What can you do? Where can you run? You'll never escape, ever." That is my past. The past I've spent my life running from. Now it pins me in place like 1,000 blades, forcing me to watch it replay with no way out. No, I won't be that woman again. After Avery, the next round began inside, and when Julian, egged on by the crowd, hooked an arm around the girl's slim waist and kissed her, only then did my strength crawl back into my limbs. I laughed out loud. The salvation I thought I'd found was just another abyss. I turned and walked back down the dim corridor, step by step. My stride shifted from heavy to light. Finally I was almost jogging, one hand cradling my belly, until I stepped back into the light. Julian was right, I'm timid and dull, but I also hold the longest grudges. When I offered him softness and he answered with a blade, he should have known, I will never forgive him. Ping. A message from Julian. "Babe, tomorrow's our 3rd anniversary. Got a surprise for you. Love you." I deleted it without expression and hailed a cab. 5. That night I slept the deepest sleep I'd had in a month. Julian found me on the balcony trimming flowers. Mrs. Lewis had just come back from her country break and was wiping water spots off the pots while telling me village gossip. I burst out laughing, and Mrs. Lewis beamed, "Madam hasn't smiled like that in ages." "Oh, Mr. Vance is home, he never misses an anniversary." Out of the corner of my eye I saw the man in the garden clutching roses, frowning at the car mirror while checking his collar. Dew on the petals glittered. Married this long and he still wants his wife to see him at his best. Look, he's spritzing cologne. "He must adore you, madam," I snorted. "Just a cheat tidying up so his wife won't smell the evidence." "What are you two laughing about?" Julian bounded up, freshly showered and glowing in the black designer suit I'd bought him, broad shoulders, narrow waist, long legs, muscles pressing at the seams. Nothing, just saying how in love you two are. I'll start lunch, leave you lovebirds. Mrs. Lewis bustled off. He greeted me with arms open, but I lifted a hand. The cologne couldn't mask the faint, cloying peach perfume. You slept at the office again? I looked straight at him. Yeah, wrapped up at 2. Missed holding you, couldn't sleep. He rubbed his head against my palm like a cat, no shame in his voice. I chuckled. Really? It rained last night, I brought you an umbrella. Security said you'd left early. His grip froze, I slid my hand free and sat down. In 2 strides he crushed me in a hug, voice small, sorry, babe. A client flagged a contract glitch, drinks flowed, I passed out in some hotel. Didn't want you worried with the baby on the way. The more he spoke, the softer and sadder he sounded, picture-perfect martyr husband. I wriggled free. That peach perfume is nauseating, Julian. You know I hate peach. He turned to stone. Good, apathy had finally replaced heartbreak. 6. All day Julian stuck to me like glue. He showered again, changed, and blamed some female assistant at A-Shuang for the scent. Zero panic, his acting deserved an Oscar. I smiled and let it slide. He sent the staff off for just us two. Watching him bustle in the kitchen, I almost believed we were newlyweds again, back when my insomnia left me thin and he'd cook between meetings. Then his phone buzzed nonstop. He scowled, declined the last call, and 2 chicken wings blackened while his mind wandered. My own phone chimed, a file and several photos. In his office, a girl knelt on the desk, pencil skirt rucked up. Julian had only bothered to unzip. Their bodies locked, his restraint, her bliss. I wanted to vomit, yet felt nothing. A blessing. Useless old hag, go die with your brat. I can give him babies too. Just tested positive, guess who he'll pick once he knows. Attached, a sonogram image. He's sick of you. Says if not for the kid he'd divorce you. Spare him. I saved the pictures and opened the foreign account file. 20-year-old Zoe, pretty but green. A grandmother who loathed girls, a dead mother, vicious stepmother, violent father. Julian rescued her, 2 years ago, when an IPO season charity shipment to Hollow went wrong. He'd flown in and yanked her from being sold to a widower. He brought her to Kingstown, bankrolled her college. Of course she fell for her savior. She looks like you. I joked back, I never played mistress. A pause, then, does he have some white knight complex? Always needing to save someone? Maybe. Over lunch the texts kept coming, now furious. Want me to torch them? I just raided the bastard's laptop, dirt galore. I can splash it across her campus intranet. No. The dog that eats trash outside is the problem, not the trash. What's so funny? Julian set down the last dish. He knew I had an invisible friend who appeared only as code. I rose. A real-life rescue romance. Man meets wife at Avalon, rescues mistress from same club years later. Does he collect strays for sport? He jerked, spilling hot soup over his hand. I watched coldly as he bustled to the kitchen to rinse his hands. When he came out, a blister had already risen on the back of one. I laid my phone face down on the table and stared at him while he stood there at a loss for an Avery-length moment. Honey, he finally said, have you heard some rumor? I shook my head, let the smile slide back onto my face. Let's eat. The screen underneath still glowed with the line Zoe had sent me. Bet you he won't even make it through your 3rd anniversary, huh? 7. In the end Julian never answered Zoe's call. When he claimed he had to run to the office, I lifted a hand and casually smoothed my hair, satisfied by the flicker of panic in his eyes when he noticed my ring finger was bare. Zoe wanted a fight, even knowing the real problem was Julian. I refused to give her the satisfaction. If all I could do was make her sick to her stomach, I'd do it. Still, with him lingering in the house I felt as if I'd swallowed a mouthful of ash, disgusted that I was now reduced to harem drama tactics just to keep a wandering husband home. That night he held me and talked endlessly about the way we used to be. He even slept curled so tightly around me I could barely breathe. Only when his throat dried up did he venture, almost whispering, Serena, the ring I carved for you, where is it? No idea, probably tossed it somewhere, I answered. Silence stretched another Avery moment before his voice floated back. Doesn't matter. I'll make you a new one. A sudden cool weight brushed my neck. I looked down, the wing-shaped diamond on the pendant glinted. He rolled me over, eyes shining. Happy 3rd anniversary, Serena. The necklace you wanted, I got it back for you. The same angel wings Zoe had once worn. I murmured a vague pretended to drift off, and turned my back to him. Maybe the day had exhausted him too. He said nothing more, only yanked me hard against his chest. Half asleep, I thought I heard him murmur, "Be good, Serena. Stay with me forever, you can never leave me." The forever he spoke of lasted only a few hours. I was awake when he slipped out of bed at midnight. Eyes shut, I listened to him dress in the dark, then leave. Down in the driveway Zoe had waited forever. The instant he appeared she flung herself into his arms. I watched a while, then yanked the necklace off and dropped it in the trash before settling into the guest room. Filthy, it was all too filthy. The moment he was gone, the act was over. I couldn't fake another second. 8. The next morning Julian texted. He was flying out on an urgent business trip, tone almost cringing. "Sorry babe, last minute crisis. When I'm back I'll stay right by your side until delivery, won't go anywhere. Wait for me, okay?" I answered, "Work comes first. Don't worry. When you return I have a big surprise for you." Attached to the message was a photo of him boarding, Zoe's hand glued to his. Tall man, petite girl, the picture of young lovers. I switched off the screen, fed every photograph we'd ever taken into the shredder, then let the crew I'd booked long ago smash every keepsake in the house. Our hand-thrown ceramic mugs, the project trophy from college, the rocking chair I'd nagged him to build, the finished nursery, 2 rooms, pink for a girl, blue for a boy, because Julian had wanted the gender to be a 10-month surprise. Now they were rubble, along with my dreams of the baby. After texting the housekeeper to take the week off, I walked out. In the car a message arrived from my overseas account. "Sure you want to go through with this?" "Yes. I'll come keep you company." 5 small words, and every grievance of the past months burst through. Tears flooded down my cheeks. Okay. 9. Night had fallen. Julian leaned against a hospital window, trying to light a cigarette. A nurse frowned. "Sir, no smoking in patient rooms." He mumbled an apology and stubbed the ash out with his fingers. "Well, procedure's fine for tomorrow. After the termination, no sex, no drafts. Young as she is, she'll bounce back fast." She left. Zoe's eyes were red, her face bloodless. Julian. She had forgotten gloating when she'd texted me her positive test. Now she only begged to keep the baby, insisting it wasn't about money. He cut her off. "A sum will hit your account, enough to live on for life. After that, we're strangers." When she still tried to cling, he gripped her cheek so hard his fingers left livid crescents. "I laid down rules from day one, Zoe. Stay obedient and you survive in Kingstown. Otherwise," a cold laugh finished the sentence. She trembled, suddenly remembering the ruthless side his recent fondness had let her forget. She was only a pet, and his heart belonged to Serena. "Enough. You'll check in here tomorrow, my assistant will settle the rest." He turned to leave. Still dazed, Zoe remembered her taunts to me. If he found out, she clutched his sleeve. "Julian, just a few more days. Stay with me while we say goodbye to our child, please?" Tears streamed as she lifted her face, planning to stall until the surgery, grab the payoff, and vanish. From that angle she looked uncannily like Serena at 17, so beautiful it hurt, fragile enough to drive men crazy. It had been the same look that first made the aloof heir notice her. He'd already learned Serena's story the week he moved in. Her family was notorious, even neighborhood dogs barked wider berths when they passed. Her stepfather drank and beat her mother. Police and social workers had given up knocking. Yet Serena fed stray cats behind the projects and slipped Julian antiseptic when he came home bloodied from fights. A kindness so stupidly pure it bordered on saintly. So when screams erupted again, Julian kicked the door in. The sight froze him. The woman he'd never seen, skeletal and bruised but hauntingly like Serena, crumpled on the floor, belly swollen, fists raining on her. Serena clung to the brute's leg and took a kick that flung her across the room. Julian's roar matched the man's cracks of bone, 3 ribs, a fractured shin, fixed later by his father's payoff. The bastard stayed silent after that, and Serena's smiles bloomed like summer. Her mother, once a ghost, began inviting him to their bare table. Then one night new screams tore the corridor. He flew out shoeless. Crushed peaches littered the floor, the sweetness of a rare happy season for Serena. Mother and stepfather lay in blood, Serena huddled, shivering, clutching a single fruit, drifting like a dandelion seed. Julian carried her out, whispering gentleness he'd never used until she finally held. If he'd first noticed her face, it was her tortured fate that made him love her. Years later he'd seen Zoe, barely a teen, roped like livestock to a limping buyer. Her blank stare mirrored Serena's that peach-stained night. 2 white jasmines sprouted from filth. Pity stirred, nothing more, because Serena owned his heart. "All right," he muttered now. A few days. 10. So for several days Julian played caretaker, telling himself it was the least farewell gift for the girl who adored him. Yet every minute Serena's ghost invaded his mind. Serena crying in that pitch-black flat, Serena wordlessly dressing his wounds, Serena enduring his touch though stepfather trauma screamed inside her. He missed her, especially the instant Zoe was wheeled back from theater, ashen, lost inside a flapping gown like a wilted lily. Would childbirth hurt Serena that much? No matter, he would be there, cradle her, hire the best postpartum team, they'd have only this one child, he decided, never put her through pain again. Their chat log still ended with his fake trip message and her cool blessing. Work here, plus Zoe's procedure, had swallowed his hours. Serena had not called either. But now he remembered her brittle smile on their anniversary. She had known. Panic flickered, he fired off a text. Watching the typing bubble, he exhaled only when her reply popped up. "Baby and I are fine. Focus on your trip." "What did you say?" he asked Zoe. She rubbed her reddened nose, pressed her cheek to his palm. "Just, these last days, be with me, okay?" Julian said nothing, only set the phone down. The afternoon Zoe was discharged, he had his assistant book the first flight to Kingstown. Before boarding he rang Serena, her soft voice promised to meet him at the airport. He smiled. "Wait for me at home, honey, 6 months along, no running around. I brought you a gift." On impulse he added, "Serena?" A gentle hum answered from the other end. "I love you," he said. These last few years had been too hard. He had walked away from the Vance dynasty, and clawing his way from startup to a new foothold in Kingstown had cost him more than he could swallow. Too many people called him an idiot for throwing away his birthright over a woman. They compared him daily to the bastard half-brother who had inherited the Vance conglomerate. Who was he? The former crown prince, the heir the world once fawned over, now watching his pride and dignity trampled so that bastard could wipe his shoes. The pampered brats he once looked down on could, with a single phone call made to please that bastard, shove his barely recovering company back into the red. So he had blamed Serena, unreasonably, relentlessly, even hated her. Hated that her mere existence had made him abandon everything like a man possessed. And as time slid by he could not remember the last moment he had spoken those 3 words with such burning sincerity. The moment they left his mouth he felt like a green kid again, heart slamming against his ribs, waiting for an answer. But the seconds stretched into Avery until the pounding in his chest slowed and the hopeful curve of his mouth drooped. Only then did the other end give a soft The line clicked dead. The heat drained, his smile froze on his face. No matter, he told himself. The only thing he had to erase was Zoe. Once he landed he would wipe every trace. Serena would never know. They would be as loving as before, and soon a baby would arrive to crown their life. The picture was so vivid it gentled his whole expression. The plane touched down in a dreary Kingstown drizzle. Something in the air felt ominous, as if an essential part of him were about to be amputated. Julian forced himself into the car and floored the accelerator. Faster, faster. Drop Zoe at campus, then home to Serena. What would Serena be doing right now? Curled on the sofa with a book? Tending the potted plants she cherished on the balcony? Or already waddling to the door, cradling her belly, waiting? Crash! Fate struck without warning. He instinctively threw an arm across Zoe. She had just rid herself of a child for him. If the impact were severe, it could kill her. Rain and distracted nerves, his car slammed into the one ahead. His front end buried itself in the other car's rear. Julian knew he was at fault, but Julian had never admitted error in his life. After checking that Zoe was unharmed, he called his assistant, used the usual tricks, teach the unlucky bastard who'd ruined his day a lesson. He ended the call, stepped out into the downpour with a cold face. Trembling, Zoe tugged his sleeve and followed. The rain thickened. Julian draped his jacket over Zoe's head and pulled her close, striding toward the other car to see who he'd hit. 2 steps later he saw the scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. A woman pushed her door open and crumpled to the asphalt, her huge belly jerking with each stab of pain from a gash on her forehead. Then she lifted her head. Her gaze, still as deep water, met theirs. There, after weeks of longing, was Serena's face. In that instant every drop of blood seemed sucked from his body. His lips twitched in mute terror, no sound escaped. 11. When I woke in St. Camilla's Hospital my forehead was already bandaged. The injury itself was minor, it just looked dramatic. A nurse came in, murmured instructions, and was paged back outside the door. Julian stood guard there, voice low, asking questions, afraid to enter. I lowered my eyes, stroked my belly gently, and called, "Julian." The questions stopped. After Avery, the door inched open. His suit, still the one he had shielded Zoe with, was rumpled beyond salvage. He forced a tender smile. "Serena, don't misunderstand. She and I, come meet our baby," I interrupted softly, sunlight catching my upturned face. His terror melted into wonder. He shuffled forward in a daze. I watched until guilt finally surfaced, guilt for cheating on his pregnant wife. I laughed, because it was laughable. He came back to himself, hand shaking as he touched my belly, voice breaking. "I'm sorry. Serena, yesterday you scared me to death. I told you to wait at home." Words failed. He pressed his forehead to my stomach. "If something had happened to you, what would I have done?" The room seemed almost cozy, silence dripping from the bathroom tap. I combed his hair the way I used to when his temper flared, calming a rabid stray. I had also seen him bury his face between another woman's breasts. A disloyal dog, sticky, sickening. Even stroking him now felt filthy, so without warning I shoved him away. Smiling into his stunned eyes, I enunciated, "Say goodbye to the baby, Julian. Tell it never to be reborn as the spawn of a scumbag like you." 12. Julian went insane. He thrashed against the 2 husky orderlies I had hired, nearly breaking free. Good thing I'd planned ahead. The moment contractions started I had them pin him down. Shock slid into agony, then into blank despair in his eyes. "Serena. You're joking, right? I was wrong, so wrong. Zoe meant nothing, months, that's all. I love you, only you. Please, our child, Serena. We're all each other has left, this baby is ours. You can't. You mustn't. Arg." His howl turned animal as I signed the papers for the induced termination, right in front of him. The drug took hold, the fetus thrashed its last. Cramps twisted my womb, my heart. I hauled myself off the bed and lurched over to him. "Oh, I can, Julian. Trash like you and your father don't deserve offspring. Serena." He knelt, pinned, screaming, the gentlest man I had known for 7 years suddenly snarling with pure hatred. Seeing it was like staring into a broken mirror. "That's our baby." I sinned, not it. "You're stripping its chance to live, how vicious. Think of your mother, she died protecting you. You're a mother now, Serena." He clawed at the wound he thought would make me crumble. I didn't care. If my mother were watching she would cheer that I had broken the cycle. Her dying word had been run. Tonight, I had sprinted clear of the shadows. I bared my teeth in a grin. "You forfeited the right to accuse me the moment you climbed into her bed. Congratulations, you've become your father, an animal who cheats while his wife carries his child. Raw passes down the line, Julian. From this day you propagate nothing." My knowledge of him became the sharpest blade. All that remained were his ragged breaths and blood-clotted eyes. Throbbing pain corkscrewed through me, yet I sounded almost light. A nurse rushed in to keep me from collapsing. Had I won? No. In this war we both lost. He stayed on his knees, exactly where he belonged while our child died. 13. The contractions sharpened until my lower half felt ripped in two. Induction means you still give birth, only to silence. The nurse walked me in circles inside the bathroom, rubbing my back, coaching my breathing. Julian knelt outside the door, eyeballs bulging, tears streaming. So he had loved the child after all. Each cramp drenched me in sweat, yet seeing him break gave me a dizzy rush, scalp tingling, almost euphoric. When the doctor slipped in and gave the epidural, I bit my tongue bloody and still formed every word. "Did you think of the baby when you cheated, Julian? Memorize this, your affair murdered your own child while it could still breathe." Blood sluiced down my thighs and pooled on the tiles. A soft splash announced the fetus sliding into the steel basin. Julian's gaze tracked it, despair calcifying into blankness, a guttural ha-ha rattling in his throat. I bent slowly, lifted the perfectly formed little body, already with fingers and toes, and laid it in his arms. "Look, Julian. Look at the life your mistake erased, so you can't forget its face in your dreams." He bolted, stumbled, fell, crawled from the room, an animal in a trap. I tipped my head back, drew one long breath. I knew my psyche was cracked. I'd been in therapy for years. The pregnancy had been a strange balm. Each flutter inside me stitched the wounds a little tighter, kept the madness caged, ended the need for pills or couches. 1 week ago I had walked back into the clinic, not for treatment, but to recount the month of carnage. At the end I asked, "Doctor, how do I make him regret?" He offered no answer. I hadn't waited for one. Julian claimed he knew me best, and I knew him. After all those sessions, I had learned to aim where the bone was thinnest. I would wager Julian would never again father a child. A psychological castration, bloodier than any knife, my farewell gift. 14. I stayed 7 nights at the hospital. Zoe called once. No triumph left in her voice, only hysteria. What did you do to him? Julian came back burning with fever, won't eat, won't speak. You evil bitch, may you rot in hell. I merely asked, I hear Julian forced you to abort yours? The line slammed dead. On the 8th morning an uninvited guest slipped into my room. A woman in black, face masked, hood up. She removed them only after the door shut. When I saw that moon-white skin shaped by years without sunlight, a sob tore free, and I wept aloud. That afternoon I signed discharge papers. En route to the airport Julian rang. I let it sing once, then silence. He never tried again. While we waited at the gate, Ivy pulled her cap low again, fingers dancing over her keyboard. A moment later she lifted her brows, eyes laughing behind the mask. Done. I was sitting to the side, lost in thought, and didn't ask her what, exactly, was done. Ivy was my friend who had never once shown her face. Her situation was almost identical to mine. The only difference was that she had chosen to loathe light and crowds, whereas I was simply terrified of them. She used to be a hacker. Once, just to provoke, she cracked the servers of a centuries-old foreign conglomerate and was caught. The family fished her out and put her to work as their network security engineer, so when she said done, it could never be anything good. The divorce papers have been mailed. Soon you'll be able to come abroad and live with me. She ruffled my hair, only then did I turn to look at her. It would never be that easy. Julian was obstinate, every slight repaid in blood. This time we'd caught him off guard, he hadn't had time to react. But he always settled scores, whether in love or hate, he would never let go lightly. So before I headed to the airport, I paid someone a visit. The present head of the Vance family, Julian's half-brother, the illegitimate son. I knew Julian. His pride ran bone deep. Even though he'd carved out his own legend, this heir their father had finally recognized was the thorn that would fester in him for life. He would rather die than be crushed under that man's heel. Back when we were still deeply in love and his startup was only taking its first breath, Julian had signed 20% of the company over to me. Now those equity shares had been sold to the very half-brother he despised. For years the two had circled like wolves, each desperate to see the other buried. An opening like this would not be wasted. Only by letting them tear each other apart could I win the time I needed to heal, and the money I would need to survive abroad. 15. After I left the country I spent a long time recovering. A 6-month induced termination does savage things to a body. Eventually I learned what Ivy's done had meant. She had hacked Julian's laptop, compressed the sex photos and videos of him with Zoe, and scheduled them for mass delivery, every partner, every employee, every inbox. Then she privately forwarded Zoe's taunting messages to him. Julian's firm was already reeling from the shares I'd dumped. The leak dumped kerosene on the flames. Even so, he wouldn't stop reaching out. No matter how airtight Ivy's firewalls were, an occasional text still slipped through. Serna, where are you? I won't divorce you. I was wrong. Let's go back to the way we were, okay? Serena, I love you. I won't let go. I'll find you. Serena, I know where you are now. Once I settle things here, I'll come take you home. Serena, I know everything Zoe did. She's gone, shipped away. No one will stand between us anymore. The photo showed Zoe with tears streaking her face, wrists bound. Flanking her were the very relatives Ivy's dossiers had shown me, her grandmother, father, stepmother, and the widower who had almost claimed her years ago. My hands shook as I read. Ivy plucked the phone away and dabbed the cold sweat from my temples. Ever since the termination I sweat ice, always chilled. Right then the cold reached my heart. She helped me sit up. I've simmered soup. Come, eat. I nodded listlessly. She snorted. Seems the chaos hasn't peaked, he still has energy to flirt. She carried her laptop to the table. Eat first, I'll add a little extra spice. I stopped her before she could type. Don't. He's already at the end of his rope. The half-brother won't give him a chance to rise again. He wasn't worth her risking another breach. 16. Soon the story twisted again. Zoe fled and posted online that she had been tricked, body and heart, and never knew Julian was married. At the same time Julian released the chat logs Ivy had fed him, shredding her lies. The two turned on each other like starving dogs. Betrayers, in the end, are betrayed. Once I grew stronger, I asked Ivy to draw me a map. I wanted to walk the world alone. I had never traveled by myself in 20-something years. From here on, I would be alone. Ivy planned the route so wide it circled the planet, so wide she warned me Julian was chasing yet always one country behind. While he chased shadows, the half-brother swallowed his company whole. She sent me a photo of Julian collapsed on a sidewalk, filthy, broken. Close enough. The day I flew back to Kingstown, snow was falling. The moment the cabin doors opened, the winter wind hit like déjà vu. I had left broken. A few months later I stepped onto the same tarmac remade, no longer timid, shrinking, flinching at every stranger. When I finally saw Julian again, it was at my invitation to discuss the divorce. He had lost weight, his hair no longer lay perfect. From the instant he spotted me his gaze pinned me in place. All our storms had sanded us smooth. We sat in exhausted civility. The horror of St. Camilla's Hospital already felt lifetimes away. I slid the revised divorce papers across the table. My shares were already cashed out. Julian's company was dead. There was nothing left to divide. I wanted only one thing, to be free. He didn't read a line. Instead he raked trembling fingers through his hair, eyes bloodshot. I just made the mistake any man might make. How did we end up? I slept with someone else. The words froze him mid-gesture, like a toy whose spring had snapped. His mouth opened, but no sound came. Despair flooded his eyes, tears welled and dropped, one after another, onto the polished wood. I had seen him cry only twice, once in the hospital, and now. That first time had been a stunned, wordless overflow. This time he brushed frantically at the tears, one hand pressed to his chest. Then he lurched up, clutching for my fingers. It doesn't matter, Serena. It doesn't. Let's start over, please? No divorce. I'll change. There'll never be anyone else. I'll make a comeback soon, I'll give you everything. I stepped clear of his reach and spoke calmly, popping the last bubble of hope. You won't, Julian. Your fire's already gone out. And we're long past fixing, everything ended the night you cheated. He sank back, hollow. I hadn't actually slept with anyone. I simply knew the surest way to gut him was to let him think he'd been erased. Sure enough, the man who once took whatever he wanted, no matter the cost, could only dredge up memories of how good he'd been to me, how it had been just one mistake. You know, Julian, women tire of the same menu, too. Did you think I never hated those unchanging living room trinkets? The difference is, when I'm bored I add chili to the dish, I rearrange the ornaments. I never once thought of eating in someone else's kitchen. Can you say the same? And was Zoe really just a copy of the girl you fell for years ago? 17. In the end he signed. Before I walked out I offered one last gift of pain. By the way, remember telling your buddies that at 6 months my belly was so big I couldn't do a thing even if I found out you cheated? Now you know exactly what I did. I stepped into the street without looking back. I never told him that the meek Serena he believed in was every bit as spiteful as he was, repaying every cut tenfold. That night years ago, among peaches spilled across the floor, my stepfather struck my mother. She hadn't managed to hurt him badly. I was the one who shoved him in panic, his skull cracking on the table edge. He died, yet still couldn't save her. The real spark of his drunken rage had been the haughty boy invited to supper who dared threaten him. Julian had meant to protect us, but the beast had already been drinking. Humiliated by a teenager's warning, he turned savage. I tried to hate Julian afterward, but I knew his intent had been good. He'd carried me through the darkest days. Yet everyone else could speak of my ruin, only he, whom I had trusted and loved, could not. Because in the ledger of my misery, his name is written too. So the moment he traded my scars for laughs with Zoe and his golden boyfriends, our mutual destruction was sealed. 18. The weeks after the divorce blurred into one long bender. He drank until the days ran together, until one night he stumbled out of a bar and nearly collided with a passerby. Bodyguards flung him aside before he came close. Another trust fund brat, he guessed, disgusted. Once, as the crown prince of the Vance dynasty, he had traveled with twice this escort. Anyone fool enough to brush his sleeve had been beaten sober. Now he lay on the pavement, waiting for fists that never fell. He raised the bottle for another burning swallow. After what felt like Avery, no blow landed. He rubbed his eyes, ready to snarl, "Hit me or let me leave," when the man at the center of the entourage stepped forward. Young, and carved from the same face he saw in the mirror every hungover morning. In that instant humiliation eclipsed everything else, he wished for death. His knuckles whitened around the glass. The half-brother looked down once and said, "Pathetic," before striding off, entourage in tow. The club manager waited at the curb, all obsequious smiles. Julian drank again, rolling the word pathetic across his tongue. Yes, pathetic was exactly what he had become. The other man wore the city's adoration like a tailored coat. Julian was the mud on its heel. Thinking it, his eyes burned. He fished out the number he still knew by heart and dialed, convinced she would answer, convinced she would save him as she always had. A man picked up on the second ring. For a heartbeat Julian felt nothing, no pulse, no breath. There was a man beside Serena, which meant, soon, there would be a new love. The stranger said hello twice, then hung up at the silence. Julian never found the courage to call again. Serena had been right, whatever fire had once driven him had guttered out on the hospital floor. There was no going back. Not to the Empire, not to the woman he would have died for. He dropped the bottle and shuffled into the swallowing dark.